This Sunday, we are continuing on in our Faith and Pandemic series. We've invited members of our congregation to share with us what life and faith have been like for them these past several months. Today, we'll hear Kristen's story. When Kristen sent me her Faith and Pandemic story, I immediately thought of Paul's letter to the church in Philippi. Paul is writing to his friends while in prison for sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. He is facing immense hardship, and it's one that he's faced many times before. Paul often found himself locked away in prison for upending things by sharing Christ's love with others. Word has gotten to his friends in Philippi that he has once again been arrested, and they are incredibly worried about him and his well-being. He writes to them to offer encouragement and care, to let them know that even with all that's going on, he is okay. He is more than okay because he knows the joy of Christ. Kristen is one of those people who, even when things are tough, can find things to be grateful for. She brings the kind of spirit of optimism and joy that Paul had. She has shared with us often at Zion the importance of the spiritual gift of gratitude, and today she gives witness to just how important that practice is. Today we're going to hear some of Paul's closing words in Philippians chapter 4. They are ones that I recite often when things feel overwhelming and hard. They remind me that in knowing Christ, there is always reason to rejoice. They are words that help me to shift my perspective and transform my outlook. They are words that bring peace to my soul by reminding me of the nearness of God. I hope these sacred words might be a healing balm for you this day. Here's Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 9. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to everyone. The Lord is near. Do not worry about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, and if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Keep on doing the things that you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, and the peace of God will be with you. May we be blessed by the reading and the hearing of these holy scriptures. Amen. As you ready your hearts to hear Kristen's witness, here is our virtual choir singing verse 3 of I Love to Tell the Story.
I love to tell the story for those who know it best. Seem hungering and thirsting to hear it like the rest. And when in scenes of glory I sing the new song, 'twill be the old story that I have loved so long. I love to tell the story, 'twill be my theme and glory, to tell the old story of Jesus and his love.
My pandemic experience, where to start? I'll have to think about it, but let me begin by sharing everyone else's experience right now. It's been almost 7 months of uncertainty, turmoil that's fostered a new, different kind of life, a new normal. 213 days of worry and fear about loved ones, friends, families, colleagues, or fellow neighbors around the world, and people who have lost jobs and died from this pandemic. 30 weeks of nurses and doctors working hard to save lives and scientists looking for a cure, a vaccination. 316,000 minutes of our lives seem like they've been turned upside down. But who's counting? We all are. The world, our neighbors, our friends, family, you and me. 2020 will be a year that we never forget. We shouldn't forget. There are too many people who have passed in the midst of this horrible epidemic that are counting on our memory to never forget them. These past months, if anything, has taught me to be more grateful than ever. Being grateful has gotten me through every day of this pandemic. Of course, I cannot wait until we can say goodbye to this horrible year. But as difficult as it may seem, seeking any positive from so much negative, it might be difficult, but it can be done. This is how I have experienced this pandemic. I'm grateful. Don't get me wrong, the pandemic, it's horrific, and saying I'm grateful sounds so horrible, but I'm grateful. Grateful for every day that God has given me, given all of us. And I'm grateful for every day that He gives all of us, now and in the future. I'm grateful for spending more time with my children and my husband these past months. We've grown so much closer. I'm so grateful that we can sit down as a family and eat a meal together and discuss the positives in our lives. Grateful for technology as it brings us closer to my family, my friends, my church family, my work colleagues. Without technology, I don't know what we would do. It would be extra hard and lonely, maybe even a huge, horrible phone bill. But God has given us technology to come closer together, despite the social distancing we have to keep in mind. I am grateful for my pastor. Pastor Sarah has gotten me through some really rough bumps in the road these past few months, and without her, I'd be questioning my faith. I'm grateful for the beautiful weather. The weather that we've had the past few months has gotten people out of their homes and walking, playing, and spending time together. For the past years, I've noticed families are not spending time together like they should be. Kids aren't playing outside. They don't have friends outside of their homes. They're spending a lot of time at home. They don't sit down to dinner with each other. They're not communicating outside of their own phones. I hadn't been hearing laughing and the chitter chatter outside of kids playing and riding bikes and having fun like I was when I was a kid. I now, since this pandemic, I hear it daily. I see the work of God. I hear and see parents happy and spending time and enjoying their families. I see people who are closer now than they ever were before the pandemic. I see people who are willing to help one another and push to get the job done despite the dangers. The pandemic has given me a sense of pride and so much gratitude in my fellow neighbors and around the world. I see so much of God's work in our pantries and the goodwill of people who just want to help. I see a lot of good in people who want to help others who are so much less fortunate than they are. God has been working in so many ways during this pandemic. In some ways, it's brought the good in people more alive than ever. I knew when the pandemic started, God was calling me to contribute something. I just didn't know what it was. We don't have a whole lot of money, and I felt this pulling and desperate need to do something. I began researching things that I could do to help others in need, but it all really started when I realized my husband, who's a police officer, was working in the public without the protections of PPE, and I wanted to ensure that he and his brothers and sisters in brown were protected. But then it grew more and more. Police officers, doctors, nurses, neighbors, family, friends, all were in need of masks. Then you add hospitals, offices, nursing homes, businesses, all in need of masks. God told me I had something to contribute. So did my husband. I had a stockpile of fabric of massive proportions. One would think that I was the crazy fabric lady, but I had something that I could give. I had the talent of sewing. I realized I was so grateful for the gift my mother gave me many years ago. I hated it, and until the pandemic, I questioned why I needed the skill of sewing and why my mother tried to instill in me the gift of sewing, and knowing how to use a sewing machine was going to get me somewhere in life. She knew that this was a skill that I was going to need, and sure enough, this skill, I needed it, and I used it. She was right. I went on a mask making marathon of mass proportions. I made so many masks, I lost count. In the end, I not only made masks, I made a way for people to go about their normal lives in what new normal we can get from this pandemic. I sent masks far and wide. A contribution and such a small token, but one that would shape the way we live our lives today. So much gratitude came back with each and every mask that I gave away. That feeling of gratitude fueled me to keep going. I never charged $1 for any masks, and when people offered to pay it, I reminded them, pay it forward. Pay it forward. It was not much, but something that I could give back to the public who was in need of a mask. It was only a tiny fraction of what mask that I could provide, but the mask making brigade out there made me feel grateful that I could provide and contribute. Barb Huffman and I would purchase elastic, which at the time was like gold to the mask making world. It was very hard to come by. But both of us together never had a day without elastic to get the job done. I never in my wildest dreams would see so many people come together for one purpose, to protect our brothers and sisters from a virus with that small little mask to protect them from the virus. I am eternally grateful for all of the skills my mother gave me, but I'm also grateful for my mask making family for helping me and pushing me to make our world just a little bit better. As a lot of you are aware, I underwent a difficult diagnosis of my thyroid during the early months of the pandemic. This diagnosis tested my faith and put me in a very anxious time during the pandemic. A diagnosis at the time that my son was graduated from high school, surgery scheduled for the day he was supposed to graduate from school. A special time in his life that I was going to miss. I felt alone and scared in the heart of a pandemic. There was a question of safety and the unknown. Because of the pandemic, I was forced to do something that I had never done before. I was going to get the surgery without the support of my friends and family. I had to muster up bravery to undergo this all alone. But I realized I wasn't alone. I realized that people were praying for me. I imagined all those people praying and speaking of me during that time of the fear. You know, it's really amazing when you have no one to distract you. When you finally get that quiet time to really listen to God and your own thoughts. That time of silence that opens your mind and soul to something more amazing and beautiful than you ever dreamed of. I realized I was hearing the work of God and felt that peace and knew I would be fine. I had a wonderful team of nurses who graciously stepped in as my family to ease my anxiety, and I am eternally grateful for their patience in getting me through it. They gave me technology to talk with my family. They remembered my son was graduating from school, so they put it on the TV so that I wouldn't miss it. Opening my heart, I realized through this bump in my life, God was there. He was always there. He guided me through every single step and brought me home to my family. I am grateful to my entire church family, my pastor, my family, my friends, neighbors, doctors, for getting me through this tough time in my life. I have had many bumps in the road, but doing this alone gave me a better sense of faith I don't think I would ever experience if I wasn't alone. I am grateful for what God has given us. It has pulled my family and I closer than we ever were before in a way that we were able to communicate and be a true family without the hustle and bustle of our daily lives. Honestly, I think God is testing us, giving us a breather to see where we were missing prior to this pandemic. Yes, the pandemic has distanced us socially, but has it really distanced us? Think about it. If we can get closer together and see Him for what He truly is, He is a God who loves us and brings us together in ways we never dreamed. All in all, my experience of a different kind of normal, a good kind of normal. The pandemic, it's been horrific and difficult, and I'm certain for all of us. But through it all, I think it's brought us closer together, despite the social distancing in mind. It has changed our thought process for a new normal, but it's also envisioned a new normal for our faith. God has taught me when life throws you lemons, you make lots and lots of lemonade and you share it. Be grateful. God bless you all.